After losing our child, we put a tiny memorial on the porch, a candle, a teddy bear, a framed photo. Our neighbor came over, looked at it, and said, "I didn't sign up to live next to a shrine." I couldn't speak. That night, the candle was smashed, the frame gone. The bear was soaked in bleach. My wife cried for hours. But the real twist? We found the frame in her trash bin, photo still inside. When I showed it to her husband, he just stared at it. Then packed a bag and left that night. We lost our son in late October. Mason. Just 7 years old. I still don't know how to say it out loud without shaking. One day he was jumping on the couch pretending to be a T-Rex. 2 weeks later he was gone. Brainstem glioma. Fast. Cruel. Unstoppable. There's no fixing the sound of a house that's suddenly quiet. We tried to keep busy. I spent hours repainting baseboards that didn't need it. Julia started folding Mason's shirts over and over again. Eventually, we decided to set up a small memorial on our porch. It wasn't for the world. It was for us. A simple teddy bear, his favorite, the one with the crooked ear. A photo of him in a white wooden frame, taken 3 weeks before we found out he was sick. He had chocolate ice cream on his chin and this big goofy grin. We placed the candle next to it, one that we lit every evening at sunset. Neighbors came and went. Some said kind things. Others just nodded and looked sad. A few left flowers near the railing. It meant something to us, even if they didn't say a word. At least they saw him. They knew he was real. But Sharon didn't bring flowers. She brought an opinion. She lived next door with her husband, Dan. Mid-50s. Always kept her yard perfect, down to the inch. She was the type who'd leave notes in mailboxes if someone's trash can stayed out too long. Real polished. Real sharp. She hadn't said anything since Mason died. Not a word. That changed on a Tuesday afternoon. Julia was sitting on the porch swing, quiet, holding Mason's blanket. I was fixing the screen door, just trying to stay busy. That's when Sharon walked over. No wave. No expression. She stared at the memorial like it was a pile of garbage. Then she said it. Her exact words. "I didn't sign up to live next to a shrine." Julia looked up. I stopped what I was doing. For a few seconds, none of us spoke. The wind moved. A bird chirped. That was it. Julia stood up slowly. Didn't say anything. Her hands were shaking. She went inside and closed the door. I just stood there, staring at Sharon. She didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. Just turned and walked back to her house like she'd said nothing wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Julia cried quietly into her pillow. I lay there, heart pounding, teeth clenched. There was so much I wanted to say. So much I wanted to do. But nothing could prepare me for what came next. The next night, around midnight, I heard glass shatter. At first I thought maybe a branch hit a window. I got out of bed and checked. I walked to the front door. Opened it. And there it was. The candle, shattered into tiny pieces. Glass everywhere. The teddy bear, soaked, dripping wet. The smell hit me fast. Bleach. Heavy, choking bleach. Like someone poured a gallon on it. And the frame? Gone. At first, I stood there frozen. Then I stepped outside. I scanned the yard. Nothing. Just the dark, quiet street. But in my gut I knew who did it. I woke Julia up. She came outside. Saw the mess. Her legs gave out. I caught her just before she hit the porch floor. She curled into herself and sobbed like I've never heard before. Not even at the funeral. We didn't call the cops. What would we say? Our neighbor hates our dead son's photo and poured bleach on his teddy bear. They wouldn't do anything. The next morning, I took our trash out. I barely slept. My eyes burned. My hands were shaking. As I rolled the bin down the driveway, I looked at Sharon's. Her bin was open a crack. I don't know why, but something told me to look. I walked over, lifted the lid, and there it was. The frame. Mason's photo. Still in it. Not even scratched. Just tossed on top like trash. I couldn't breathe. My heart felt like it was about to tear through my ribs. I grabbed it and walked straight to their door. Dan answered. He looked groggy, like he hadn't slept either. He saw the frame in my hand and just stared at it. This was in your trash, I said. That's all I said. His face changed instantly. His eyes went wide. Then something broke behind them. Like he suddenly saw something he'd been ignoring for years. He took a slow breath. Looked past me. Then stepped back inside without a word. 5 minutes later, I saw him through the window. He had a duffel bag. He threw it in his truck. Got in. And drove away. No goodbye. No yelling. No fighting. Just gone. Sharon came out onto the porch, yelling his name. Then she saw me standing in my yard holding the frame. Her face twisted into something ugly. Not guilt. Not fear. Anger. She stormed inside and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. I walked back to the porch. Set Mason's photo down where it belonged. I didn't speak to Sharon after that. But the silence didn't last forever. 3 days after Dan left, a letter came in the mail. No return address. Just our names printed in neat block letters. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my marriage over a photo. What kind of people exploit their child's death to make others feel guilty? Maybe if you'd spent less time making a shrine and more time being parents, your kid would still be alive. No signature. But I knew who wrote it. Julia read it and started shaking. She sat on the floor, holding Mason's blanket to her face. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stood there with the letter in my hand, the blood rushing in my ears. Later that day, Sharon came out and started mowing her lawn. Loud. Aggressive. Like she was trying to prove something. I watched her from the window. Every time she turned the mower around, she stared at our house. The next morning, a code enforcement officer showed up. We got a complaint, he said. Something about an unpermitted memorial structure on your porch. I showed him. Just a teddy bear, a candle, and a photo. No nails, no paint. Just sitting there. He looked uncomfortable. Yeah, I didn't think it was anything, but well, I'm supposed to log it. Can't stop people from reporting. When he left, I saw Sharon watching from her window. Smiling. That night, Julia whispered, she wants to erase him. Like he never existed. She was right. Sharon wasn't just mad. She wanted control. She wanted our grief quiet, out of sight. She wanted us to move on so she could forget he was ever there. But I wasn't going to let her. I started documenting everything. Photos. Notes. Times. Dates. I got a motion camera and aimed it at the porch. If she touched one more thing, I'd have proof. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Then Dan reached out. An email. Short. Just one line. I need to talk to you. I met him at a diner 2 towns over. He looked rough. Like he hadn't shaved or eaten in days. He ordered coffee, hands shaking. She's done worse, he said. I leaned in. What do you mean? She used to go through my emails. My mail. My phone. She cut up a sweater once because she thought it was a gift from someone else. It was from my sister. He rubbed his eyes. She's not just mean. She's sick. She needs help, but she won't get it. When I saw Mason's photo in the trash, I knew she'd never stop. Not even for a dead child. I didn't know what to say. I felt sick. Cold. Dan reached into his coat. Pulled out a small USB stick. She writes everything down. Every time she feels wronged. Names, dates, what she thinks people deserve. There's years of it on here. I took it. He said nothing else. Just nodded and left. When I got home, I plugged it in. There were dozens of files. Notes. Letters. Even drafts of emails she never sent. Some of them were terrifying. The neighbor's dog won't stop barking. Might put antifreeze in a bowl and see what happens. Kid next door throws a ball into my yard again. Cut it open and leave it on their doorstep. But one stood out. That kid. Always laughing. Always screaming on their swing. I wish they'd just go away. Go back inside. God, I wish he'd just get sick or something. It was dated 6 months before Mason's diagnosis. I stared at the screen, my hands numb. Julia came into the room. I showed her. She read it slowly. Her face went white. She sat down and just whispered, she hated him. I nodded. She didn't want a shrine, I said, because she never wanted him here at all. After reading that file, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Not because I thought Sharon actually caused Mason's illness, I'm not stupid. But that sentence stuck with me. I wish he'd just get sick or something. Who writes that about a kid? A neighbor's kid? Julia didn't speak for most of the next day. She just sat on the floor of Mason's room, running her fingers over the edge of his bookshelf. That night, she whispered something I didn't expect. She never looked at him. I turned to her. What? Sharon. Not once. Not during the months he was getting worse. Not even when we carried him to the car that night, when we had to take him to the hospital. She stood out there, watering her plants, and didn't even look up. That's when something in my brain clicked. Something small but sharp. I got up and went to the coat closet. Dug through a box of old things. Pulled out our doorbell camera from before we upgraded to the motion system. We'd stopped using it about a year earlier but never deleted the cloud account. I logged in. Started checking dates. I didn't know what I was looking for. Just a gut feeling. Then I found it. The night the candle was smashed. Around 12:18 a.m. Motion detected. I played it. There she was. Walking across our lawn in the dark. No shoes. A bleach bottle in one hand. A cloth in the other. She bent down. Uncapped the bottle. Poured it all over the teddy bear. Took the photo frame. Looked up into the lens. Smiled. Then she walked back to her house. That smile. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't confusion. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they win. I showed Julia. Her face didn't move. But her hands balled into fists so tight her knuckles turned white. I want her gone, she said. I agreed. I made copies of the video. Uploaded them to 3 different cloud drives. Put one on a USB. Dropped it off with a lawyer friend I trusted from college, just in case. I was done playing it safe. But before I did anything public, I wanted to know what Dan knew. I emailed him the video. Asked him point blank. Did she ever hurt anyone else? He replied in an hour. You need to talk to the people 2 doors down from you. The Myers. Ask about their cat. I had no idea what he meant. So I walked down to the Myers' place. Nervous. Unsure how to even bring it up. Mrs. Meyer opened the door. She was older, in her 70s, always friendly. I told her I was sorry to bother her, but something had come up. That we were learning some disturbing things about Sharon. I asked her straight out. Did something happen to your cat a while back? She stared at me. Then nodded slowly. It was 2 years ago, she said. He was old but still healthy. One day he came in foaming at the mouth. We rushed him to the vet, but they said he'd ingested something toxic. Antifreeze. My blood ran cold. We didn't know how. He never left the yard. But Sharon, she had complained about him before. Said his collar bell kept her awake at night. That he scratched her fence. I asked if they told anyone. We had no proof, she said. And Dan, Her husband came by the next week and offered to pay the vet bill. Quietly. Said it was a kindness gesture. I didn't understand then. Now I think I do. I thanked her. Walked back to the house, heart hammering in my chest. Now it was bigger than us. This woman hadn't just poured bleach on a teddy bear. She'd poisoned a pet. Kept a journal of violent fantasies. Watched a child die next door and wrote wishes about it. She wasn't just cruel. She was dangerous. And she was about to find out what it felt like to have the world watch her fall apart. I didn't tell Julia right away about the cat. I didn't have to. She saw it on my face the second I walked back in the door. She was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping Mason's favorite book open and closed, Dinosaurs Before Dark. She killed their cat, didn't she? She asked, not looking up. I nodded slowly. Antifreeze. Just like in her notes. Julia put the book down. She doesn't just hate kids. She hates anything that lives without her permission. I knew what we had to do. It was past time. The next morning, I emailed a copy of the Porch video to the local HOA, the City Code Enforcement Office, and, most importantly, the Sheriff's Department. I didn't make a big statement. I just included the video, the date, time, and our address. That same afternoon, a deputy cruiser showed up. Julia and I stood inside, watching through the blinds. The officer walked up to Sharon's porch, knocked. She answered. He said something. She stepped outside, calm at first. But then she saw him pointing to the house, our house. And her calm cracked. She shouted. We couldn't hear the words, but her arms were flailing. She pointed at us. Screamed. The deputy stood his ground, then handed her a paper, maybe a citation, maybe a notice. She slapped it out of his hand. He arrested her right there on the porch. Cuffed. Screaming. Julia gasped. Oh my God! She whispered. I didn't say anything. Just watched as they put Sharon in the back of the cruiser and drove off. But I knew this wasn't the end. 2 days later, we got another letter. No return address again. But this one wasn't from Sharon. It was from Dan. Inside was a long, typed message and another USB stick. She kept journals on paper too. I thought I'd thrown them all out. But she hid some in the crawl space. I'm sorry I didn't do more. I was afraid of her. But now that she's been charged with destruction of property, the court might actually start looking deeper. The USB had photos, scans of pages. Sharon's handwriting. More lists. Some names we didn't recognize. One entry stuck out. The child next door keeps staring at me. He knows I don't like him. I think he's doing it on purpose. If he ever steps on my side of the grass again, I swear to God. It cut off there. The date on that entry? 2 weeks before Mason collapsed the first time. Julia was the one who noticed it. She held the paper in her hand for a long time. Then she stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled down a plastic bin. Inside was Mason's backpack, still packed from the last week he went to school. She opened it. Inside were crumpled worksheets. A snack pack. A drawing of a smiling sun with 2 stick figures holding hands, us. And at the bottom, a folded piece of paper. I recognized Sharon's handwriting immediately. It said, Stop looking at me or I will tell your mom you are a liar. I hear you at night. I know what you are. No envelope. No name signed. Just that. My legs almost gave out. She slipped it into his backpack. Julia said, voice flat. She got that close to him. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear her. She tried to scare him. I couldn't speak. My mind raced. Was that why he started waking up crying the last month? Why he started sleeping with the light on again? We thought it was the illness. We thought it was fear of hospitals. But what if some of it was her? She didn't just destroy a candle and a bear. She tried to erase our son's memory before he was even gone. She invaded our grief. Our home. Our lives. That night, I emailed everything to the sheriff's office again. I attached the letter, the scan, the photo of the backpack. The next morning, a detective called. We're reclassifying the case. She's not just looking at vandalism charges anymore. Julia stood beside me while I talked. Her eyes locked on mine. The detective said something else. We may need to talk to you both about a pattern of harassment. Possibly even witness intimidation. This isn't just about property anymore. If what you've sent is true, this might go much deeper. He paused. There may be other victims. And just like that, we realized. This wasn't over. This had just begun. The news spread through the neighborhood faster than I expected. By the weekend, half the block knew Sharon had been arrested. The other half just assumed she'd finally gone off the rails. People started stopping us at the mailbox. Whispering. Asking questions. One older guy at the end of the street, Tony, lived there over 30 years, pulled me aside. She ever mention a kid named Cody to you? He asked, eyes sharp. I told him no. Tony looked down at the ground for a long time, then said, he used to live in Sharon's house. This was maybe 12, 13 years ago. Single mom. Quiet kid. Kind of a loner. I used to see him drawing on the sidewalk with chalk. Sharon was their landlord back then. I waited. My stomach was already tight. One day he just stopped coming outside. Then they moved. Real sudden. A week later, Sharon had a new tenant. He looked up. I always thought it was strange. But now, with all this, I asked if he remembered the mom's name. He did. Donna Perry. Lived in Boise now, he said. They'd kept in touch on Facebook. When I got home, I found her. Sent a message. Didn't expect a reply that day. She answered within the hour. I can't believe someone's finally asking. Yes. We lived in that house. Sharon was our landlord. And yes, something happened. She asked if we could talk on the phone. Julia and I sat at the kitchen table, holding hands while I put the call on speaker. Her voice was soft. Measured. Like someone who'd practiced how to talk about this without falling apart. She hated my son. From day one. Said he was too loud. That his footsteps were aggressive. He was 8. We lived upstairs, she lived in the basement apartment then. She'd bang on the ceiling with a broom handle whenever he so much as coughed. She paused. But then it got worse. She left notes on our door. On his bike. One said, try screaming again and I'll show you how loud silence can be. He didn't understand what it meant. But I did. Julia's hand squeezed mine so hard it hurt. Donna kept talking. I tried to move. But I couldn't afford the early termination fee. Then one night, Cody came in crying. He said he saw Sharon in the hallway. That she told him she could make kids disappear. I confronted her. She denied it. Said my son was a liar. We were silent. Listening. 2 days later, someone let all the air out of his bike tires. Poured something sticky into his backpack. I moved out that week. Broke the lease. Took a hit on my credit. I didn't care. Did you report it? I asked. To who? The cops said there was no evidence. The property management company backed her. Said she was strict but fair. That's what they always said. Strict but fair. Julia leaned forward. Would you talk to the police now? There was a pause. Yes, Donna said. Yes, I will. The next morning, I gave her contact info to the detective handling Sharon's case. He thanked me. Told me they were officially opening a larger investigation. Julia and I sat in silence after I hung up. She's been doing this for years, she said. Hurting people. And nobody did anything. But something else had changed. We weren't scared anymore. We were angry. I started writing everything down. Every detail, every file, every name. I started putting together a timeline: Mason, the Myers cat, Cody, Donna. The notes. The bleach. The trash can. I made a website. Private at first. Password protected. Julia helped me upload everything. Photos. Screenshots. Letters. We gave the password to the police. To Dan. To the Myers. To Donna. 1 week later, someone emailed us through the site. She said her name was Beth. She used to teach at a preschool down the road. A decade ago. Her message was short. I recognized that handwriting on the note from Mason's backpack. I've seen it before. It was on a note left inside our mailbox after we sent home a behavior report on a boy who was crying too often. The note said, maybe next time, you'll think twice before labeling a child weak. We thought it was a parent. Now I'm not sure. Julia stared at the screen. She hated vulnerability. She said, in kids. In adults. In anyone. I nodded. And when someone was grieving, when someone was broken, that's when she struck. Julia didn't answer right away. Then she said something I didn't expect. I want her to feel what she made us feel. Julia said it in a calm voice. But I could feel the weight of it. She wasn't talking about revenge the way you see in movies. She didn't want to hurt Sharon back. She wanted her seen, fully, publicly, with no way to hide. So we made the website public. Not just unlocked. We shared it. I posted it on a local Facebook group with over 5,000 members. The post said, if you ever had an encounter with Sharon ______ on Meadow Lane, you might want to read this. We did. And we're not staying quiet anymore. I didn't expect what came next. Hundreds of comments poured in. Some shocked, some angry. And then, little by little, people started sharing their own stories. A girl from high school said Sharon used to work part-time as a substitute teacher. She'd left after only 2 months. One of the kids refused to go to class when she was there. Said the mean lady. Told him he was too ugly to be on picture day. Another neighbor 2 blocks down posted photos of her garden. Flowers chopped down overnight 2 years ago. After she told Sharon at an HOA meeting that her yard looked like a retirement brochure. One woman said she filed a noise complaint once, and found a rotting fish in her mailbox the next day. These weren't crimes that left fingerprints. But together, they told a story. And now that story was out. It made the local paper within a week. Neighborhood reels after discovery of alleged harassment, disturbing notes, and pet poisonings. The reporter contacted us. We gave them everything. And then came the hardest part. The police asked Julia and me if we wanted to press full charges, not just for vandalism, but for harassment, intimidation, and endangerment. The evidence supported it. We sat in that cold office, staring at the stack of papers. Julia was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. She made a child afraid to go to sleep in his own home. She said, let's finish this. Sharon's trial started 3 months later. She didn't cry in court. She didn't apologize. She sat stiff in her chair like she was above all of us. Her lawyer tried to claim mental health issues, trauma, stress, even medication interactions. But the jury saw the videos, the notes, heard the stories. They didn't buy it. She was found guilty of multiple misdemeanor counts, harassment, property destruction, animal cruelty. 1 felony count of endangering a minor. The judge gave her 18 months in jail, plus mandated psychological treatment. She was also served with a permanent restraining order. She tried to speak after sentencing. But her voice broke. I couldn't even make out what she said. And to be honest, I didn't care anymore. After the trial, Dan sent us one last message. Thank you for standing up. I stayed quiet too long. I let fear keep me from doing what was right. I won't do that again. Julia and I sat on Mason's porch swing the day Sharon left for jail. We didn't smile. We didn't celebrate. But we lit the candle again. Placed the bear on the table. And framed that same photo, the one Sharon tried to throw away, and hung it in our living room. Front and center. The pain is still there. It probably always will be. But silence isn't. Not anymore. And if anyone ever asks why we told the story the way we did, why we made it public, why we didn't just let it go, I'll tell them the truth. Because she tried to erase our son. But now everyone remembers his name.